Hi, Dave Rogers here again. In this segment, we're going to look at cognitive behavioral therapy and schema therapy and do overviews of each. Before I proceed, how this fits into the program is we emphasize recovery, not abstinence. We could help a person stop drinking, stop using drugs, stop gambling, but if that's the only thing that we change in their life, that is not recovery. So recovery is a much broader view and looking at a wider picture of a person's functioning and helping them see other areas that they might be stuck in and giving them tools to move forward or reshape some of their thinking that may or may not be directly related to the addiction. So I'm going to start with a visual to explain cognitive behavioral therapy, or what we call CBT. A helpful way to do this is a triangle. So we have thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And if you'll notice, each side has dual directional arrows on it. In other words, my thinking affects my feelings affect my behaviors affect my feelings affect my thoughts, my behaviors affect the way I think, and the way I think affects my behaviors. So what CBT holds is that we can't reach inside someone and directly change their feelings, but we can help them change their thought patterns and their behaviors, and those in turn can indirectly affect the feelings. So an example of negative CBT, I might wake up with the thought that today's probably going to be just another disaster. This affects my feelings, discouragement, lack of hope. I feel defeated before I even get out of bed. How might this affect my behaviors? Well, if I'm believing that today's just going to be another disaster, why would I want to put in full effort in my behaviors? And so if I follow through with that and I'm giving 50, 60, 70% effort at my tasks of the day or less, that's probably going to have less than a good outcome. And when I see that outcome, I'm probably going to have some thoughts about it, which maybe reinforces my original thought of the day. Today's just going to be another disaster. So I reinforce in street language what we call stinking thinking, and round we go. So there is a separate and distinct vein of therapy called DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy. And one of the strengths there is that they focus on specific behaviors to influence mood. And so examples of that might be time with your dog or horses. Both of those therapies, dog-assisted therapy and equine therapy, there's quite a base of research that shows that can definitely improve depression. So there's some examples of behaviors that can affect my feelings. So a close cousin, if you will, of CBT therapy, which is what this is, cognitive behavioral therapy, is something called schema therapy. And I'm going to add on to this. So schema is a different way of saying my filter. And we all have them. So a very helpful website that I found a good working definition of schemas is study.com. They define a schema as a mental concept that informs a person about what to expect in a variety of experiences and situations. Schemas are based on information provided by life experiences and then are stored in memory. Our brains create and store schemas as a shortcut to make future encounters with similar situations easier to navigate. The schema that we have formed is based on past experiences, and this is at play when we encounter similar new situations. Our brains try to make sense of the new situation based on our past experiences and learning. These can be positive or negative. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of a positive schema and a negative schema. So over here we have an event. So in terms of positive, say my schema was formed by those adults in my life when I was young that I respected greatly, and I frequently heard the message, David, you are capable, smart, and resourceful, but you need to apply yourself and learn and work hard as well. So if that's in my filter, it's going to build confidence, a sense of competence, which makes learning easier. So I walk into a new situation and it goes through my filter, and I remember what I've been told about myself, and my past successes comes through my schema, and I think to myself, I love new situations. There's always something to learn here, and they're exciting, and I can tackle this. Let me give you an example of how this would go around the circle. So if I come in with the thoughts that I'm excited to learn things, usually new experiences teach me things, I'm going to approach this with a positive attitude, and my feelings will probably be secure and confident, which will affect my behavior. Let's give you another example. Let's take a look at a negative example that is one of mine. I am 57. I can remember this like it was yesterday. It was first grade, and back in the Stone Age, we used to do Dick and Jane workbooks. So myself and 2 or 3 other students were in the front of the class, and we were in a small group, and the teacher, who I will name Mrs. P, she's probably long past, but just to protect her identity, I had 2 pictures in front of me, and my job was to distinguish how they were different. And so one of them had a young girl, Jane, and her dog, Spot, who was on the floor. The next one had Spot with his paws in her lap, getting her dress all muddy. And for some reason, I could not see the difference. And she scolded me sternly and even got physical with me. And I had a little girl next to me. Her name's Lisa. I can remember this over 50 years ago. And at the right moment, she leaned over and tried to give me some help. Unfortunately, Mrs. P saw that, and poor Lisa got it 3 times as bad as I did. And so how that experience affected me, I saw all of the other kids in the class looking up front at the commotion. I felt my whole head get red, and I watched this girl burst into tears, and that influenced me that I am dumb and I am not confident, and I had some major insecurity throughout most of my schooling up until I got out of high school, well into college, and then graduate school before I could undo some of that. But in essence, I put a set of glasses on at that moment, and the lenses told me, you don't have it, and you're probably going to mess up. And so that affected my thinking, and I was easily embarrassed. I was not confident, which affected my behaviors and my performance with grades and tests and papers. And when I saw grades that were not that good, it reinforced my thought, see, you really don't have what it takes. So that's an example of a negative. So let me give you another one. So say, for example, we had a schema of a father and a son, and the dad said to the son repeatedly, you're embarrassing. I wish I had a daughter. I really don't like being seen with you. And that boy hears that over and over and over and over. And his filter is going to be that exact thing. I'm an embarrassment. I'm an embarrassment to my dad especially, but probably to my family. So he grows up with this in his filter. And then we have an event. We have 2 people in a room, and they're talking. One is the young boy who is now an adult man, and a second person. Person number 3 walks into the room and whispers in the other person's ear. They both leave. That's the event. It goes through my schema, and I think, I know what they said. They're whispering about me. That's what happened. Hits my feelings, shame, embarrassment, maybe some anger and frustration. I come over here, you know what, I'm just going to stop hanging out because this kind of thing happens all the time. And so I start pulling back, hanging out, and sometimes people try to read our nonverbals. They might say, gee, where's Dave? How come he stopped hanging out? Maybe he needs some space. Maybe he needs some alone time. And so people give me some space, and they give me some alone time, which is another event. Goes through my schema, and I think, see, I told you. I know why people are not texting me anymore or coming to hang out with me, and round we go. So therapy involves really examining your schema, what it is, what it contains, what kinds of glasses you look at through life and relationships, and most importantly, where it came from. So in essence, we're looking to clean the filter out. In an example, using this scenario, we could ask this guy, is your dad the only one that said these kinds of things? Well, my coach thought I was awesome, and I had an uncle, he thought I hung the moon. Yeah, but he's my dad. And parents carry a lot of weight just for the mere fact that they're our parents. But in essence, we step back and look at the big picture, and we discover that there's only one person saying these kinds of things. And so we challenge this. Is this gospel? Is it the truth? Or are these simply things that your dad said and they had major impact on you? So we challenge this and we help this person find out, you know, if everybody in my life was saying the same thing, that might be a different scenario. But there was only one person. Well, how did my dad get parented? How did his dad treat him? And I discover he was very abusive. So my father didn't learn how to be a good dad, and he took that into parenting me. So now I'm stepping back and seeing a bigger picture. This really isn't about me. Unfortunately, I was on the receiving end of it, but it doesn't belong to me. And I start letting go of those beliefs. And so when I clean this out, how this would look in the future, same situation. I'm in a room with another person, and person 3 comes in. They whisper and leave. That's an event. It goes through a clear, objective filter, and my thought is the facts. There were 2, and then there were 3, and now there's 1. Stop. Those are the facts. What they said between each other, I have no idea. He could have said, come quick. Your mom's in the ICU. She's had a near-fatal accident. Or, can you please come? I'm in crisis. I have no idea what they said. And for me to speculate on what was whispered is pointless, because I don't know. And if they felt it was really important for me to know, they would have told me. So, if that's my type of thinking, because my scheme is cleared out, I don't have to feel ashamed. I don't have to feel embarrassed or singled out. I don't have to stop hanging out, because this kind of thing doesn't happen all the time. It's an isolated event. I'm treating it just for what it is. So the next thing I'd like to do is help you discover what your schemas are, and we all have them. We are shaped by different things growing up. Let me give you another example of how schemas are formed. And this involves what's called limited global awareness when we are children. In other words, when we are kids, we are born with innate curiosity. We ask mom and dad, how come the sun comes up over here every morning and not over here? And how come when it rains it comes from the sky to the ground and not reverse? And how come Uncle Joe wears his cap sideways? We want to understand the why about things. So I'll give you an example of a formative event. Say a young boy or girl goes running to the back door every night at 6 p.m. because they know Dad's coming home. Dad's hand leaves the door, his eyes meet theirs, and his arms spread out wide. He drops down on one knee every single night. What is he communicating to that child without words? He's basically saying, you excite me, I'm always excited to see you. Come on over here, let me give you a big hug, which is this close to, you are valuable to me. Let's flip it. His hand leaves the doorknob, his eyes meet theirs, head drops down, big long sigh, walks right by them every night. what is he saying without words? Your disappointment. I don't even like seeing you when I get home. You make me miserable, which is this close to you are miserable. So those are examples, and we go through our limited mental Rolodex of why is Dad reacting that way? And we pull different cards to explain it. And sometimes we pull the card, maybe it's me, or we're told it's you, and we put that card back in the Rolodex. Yep, it is me, and I believe it. And then on go my glasses, my schema. So I'd like to help you begin to discover what your schemas are. So here are some things that you could write on. The thing about relationships is about me is about the future is finances. The thing about people is, and just journal on these things, and you'll probably see your schema identified. For example, you might say, the thing about relationships is, on the whole, they're great. Gosh, I don't know how I'd live without them. But there are some folks, they give you a run for your money. The thing about me is I'm a burden to everybody. It seems that if people are in a bad mood, it's usually my fault. Or the thing about me is, you know, I'm a work in progress. I have some positive things and some negative things, and I am a work in progress just like everybody else. The thing about the future is it's full of hope, or it rarely ever brings anything good, because I've been through a lot in my past, which has darkened my hope for the future. So you can put in any word you want. It can be the thing about authority is, and based on my past experience of authority, that will probably shape how I complete that sentence. So one final thing before we close in terms of schemas is the principle of association. I'll give you an example. Say I took a pen and you and I were in session and I stuck you in the leg with the pen. Ow! And then session number 2, I stick you again. Session number 3, you come in and sit down and I pull out the pen. Most people would recoil or say, uh-oh, I know what's going to happen next. Every time he pulls that out, he sticks it in my leg. Say none of that happened, and you and I are sitting in a session, and you suddenly remember something that's an emergency, and you don't want to rely on your memory, and you say, oh my gosh, I need something to write with. Dave, do you have anything to write with? Here, take this. And you write it down. Whew, there, that was good. Next session, you come in and you're playing with a pocket watch that belonged to your great-grandfather, or an heirloom earring, and it falls out into the chair crack, and you can't get it. And you try and can't get it, and I say, here, try this, and you slide it right out. Third session, you come in and I show you the pen. Most people would say, I love pens. They're great for writing emergency reminders. They save heirloom jewelry and pocket watches. I love pens. Objectively, it's a piece of plastic with ink in it. But what it's been paired with, through my experience, it takes on that property. In other words, in the first example, pen has come to equal pain. In the second example, pen has come to equal helpfulness. And so many times these things shape our schemas. And whatever was going on during that experience, it gets paired with associations, and we have other things attached to it. The positive thing with association is that these things can be disassociated. If I've been stuck in the leg with a pen, I can gradually learn all the incredible uses of a pen and start separating it from this attachment of pain. So the same mechanism that joined them in the first place, experience, is the same mechanism that separates them, experience. Well, thanks for listening. See you next time.